Story 1. I am a security officer at the airport. You don't have metal on you to activate the metal detector. As you're walking through the detector, bumping or hitting the side will cause it to activate. I'm sure gangs, traffickers, and dishonest families will catch on to the spoon-in underwear trick. Story 2. If you're not actually a citizen of the United Kingdom or United States, but the country your family is taking you to, what can Western authorities do to help even if you do the spoon thing? Story 3. My dear friend works intensely for a charity in Cambodia that rescues little children from the child sex trade, little girls and boys, as young as 1 year old. I love seeing her photographs from the time she spends with them and the joy she brings them, several times a year, and relentlessly on various social networks, in person and through fundraising. When I first saw photos of her with the children at the rescue centers, I realized all the kids would hold their hands in front of their eyes like goggles, thumb to finger. I asked why. It's so the traffickers can't identify their victims, find them, and kidnap or kill them. Reality check. This is real. Story 4. One of the coolest moments of my former law practice was getting a court to emancipate a young girl whose parents in her birth country had commanded her to return from a United States visit to marry a 55-year-old business associate of her father's. In telephone testimony to the court, the father emphatically insisted that it was his right to give her to any man he chose and that her age and wishes were irrelevant. He also refused to let the child's mother testify despite being ordered by the judge to put her on. Took a little more than that to carry the day for us, but not much. Many lawyers in many cities around the world will vigorously pursue this kind of case at no charge. Just contact the local court or bar association, if that is at all possible. Edit 1 day later. I will be grateful if this story, which is in fact absolutely true, empowers even one person to seek or render help. Story 5. There are stickers in the ladies' toilets at Birmingham Airport in the United Kingdom that say, "Is there any reason you don't want to travel? Call number XXX to get help from a police officer. You are in the green, pink, or purple toilet." I always thought that was great for women who feel trapped in scary situations. It's a general call for anyone in an abusive or frightening situation. Not just targeting the extreme, but anyone who feels unsure or unsafe. I think it's meant for terrorism whistleblowing also. Therefore, in many of these cases, I think people do have access to phones. I haven't been in the men's, so maybe they have them in there too. But I wouldn't know. Story 6. A girl in my hometown was taken to Pakistan. She ended up drinking bleach to get home. Just over a year later, her parents killed her and dumped her body in Cumbria. Her name was Shafilia Ahmed. Story 7. I read about this as an anti-female genital mutilation technique. Female genital mutilation is illegal in the United Kingdom, but some parents will take their pubescent girls home to meet their aunt for treatment in the African nations where they are from and where female genital mutilation is legal. Story 8. This is good advice, seriously. I have worked at an airport and have spoken to a security officer who helped a woman stop being transported and killed. The woman did not know she wasn't going to be coming home until she got to the airport and her husband went to the toilet and she realized only he had a return ticket. She somehow managed to quickly think to hide her bangle so that she could set the metal detector off and have to be searched. As the officer was up close and searching her, the woman whispered for help. The officer quickly took her for a private search, grabbed the woman's bags and passport too as protocol, and went into the private search room. The woman fell on the floor crying, begging for help, so they called the police. The husband started to get suspicious and tried to break his way into the room, and the officer had to push against the door. Thankfully, the police turned up straight away and restrained him. He was arrested, and she was given protection and moved to a new city to start a new life. It was harrowing to hear and really awful to know that this goes on. If you have any suspicion of something like this happening, even an inkling, please do something, call someone. Story 9. We flight attendants are trained to spot human trafficking too. It's tough because handlers are getting smarter. Some brave girl left a note in the lavatory for us to find on a flight, and flight attendants were able to stop her from being trafficked further. Since my thread has some attention, I do want to point out that you too can be on the lookout for human trafficking. If you see any of these signs listed on this government website, please let an airport authority know. Or if in flight, let one of us flight attendants know. Do not engage the suspected people. We won't in flight either, for the suspected person's safety. Story 10. I think there were multiple discussions about this on Reddit legal advice, along with other posts about people trying to avoid being sent away for marriage. I'll try to find them. Story 11. I am super late, but I have a good friend that I met in Haiti who was married off at 17 from Ukraine to the United States. Her husband was in his 50s, and she didn't know that she had a choice. After living and sleeping with this man for 2 years, she figured out that she didn't have to be a slave to him. She stole a bunch of his money and bought a ticket to Haiti to do disaster relief work, and then a ticket back to Ukraine. She is happily married now to a man she loves dearly and has a son who is, I believe, 5 or 6 years old now. We don't get to talk as much as we used to. She is stronger than anyone I have ever known. Story 12. Not an answer, but I've heard from people I know that they use the same method, spoon in underwear, if a woman is going to another country to help stop female genital mutilation. I don't know if this has helped anyone, but I thought it was a clever plan. Edit. Female genital mutilation. Sorry for abbreviating it to those who weren't aware of what it stood for. Story 13. This only works in the case of forced marriage involving transnational movement. And even then, they can easily circumvent it by going by land if the distance is close enough. The problem is, at least in my nation, most of these forced marriages happen within the nation, and almost exclusively in the Montegrad area where the central government has no control and no desire to stir up the hornet's nest. They just outright capture the bride, force her into marriage, and unless the bride manages to break out before they rape her, she is in trouble because once they rape her, she is viewed as belonging to them. That is why if you travel to the northwest of Vietnam to the Montegrad area, you will see Hmong girls with knives. Those knives are used to stab these grooms. Those knives are also used to kill themselves if they cannot get away. Story 14. This one is serious. My friend is from Uzbekistan, and forced marriage is extremely popular over there. She was told of a partner at 14 and got married unwillingly to a farmer's son a year later. When he wanted to go on honeymoon to Rome, she took advice from friends who had heard about the spoon trick. Sure enough, after a week in Rome, she put the spoon in her panties and was pulled over by authorities where she confessed. She married another friend of mine in America, and she says she is happier than ever. The trick saved her from an unhappy life and marriage. So if you need to, grab the spoon and put it near your belongings. Story 15. My dad handles immigration during his extra time and retirement in the Association of Southeast Asian Nations region. One of the problems with the transportation of people meant to be harmed, such as through rape, prostitution, or being sold, was so successful because they don't know. Even those who knew found the dream far better than what they had in their old home. The existence of many cases of abuse, manipulation, exploitation, and corruption, even by high-ranking officers, made the problem uncontrollable. One case that left me speechless was the baby kidnapper. A woman disguised herself as a helper and kidnapped babies after managing to fool the homeowners. There she kidnapped the baby or children. Apparently, this was a result of being raped and sold and eventually getting pregnant. The gang took the baby away and promised to release the baby if she completed the job. She did, and she kidnapped more than 20 children and babies. By the time she wised up and realized her child was long gone, she went to the authorities. The gang is still here today even after more than a decade since the report. After her testimonial, she was returned to her country and relocated. Not long after, she and her family were found dead. The thing about exploitation and corruption is that there is no line. The hole just gets deeper and deeper until you no longer feel it's wrong. Rather, it is expected for you to do it. Just to paint a picture, Al Jazeera made a 26-minute documentary, Malaysia, Babies for Sale. Yet, even till now, the clinics are operational, the very important person mentioned is still free, and there were no arrests or major syndicate takedowns. Nothing happened even after an international highlight about the problem. Story 16. I spoke to a forced marriage officer about this recently. Because the spoon trick is now so widely publicized, future wives are now frequently searched and the spoons found. Story 17. I live close to a small Yemeni market here in the United States and have become friendly with the young woman who works there. She told me she does not want to wear her headscarf anymore because people stare at her or insult her. She also told me that under her headscarf she's a completely different person, that she likes to drink tequila. The problem is that her family has taken and hidden her identification and passport so that she can't ever leave. She can't go anywhere on her own. She's a really sweet person, and from the conversations we have about sex, alcohol, and crushes, she really isn't who the headscarf makes her out to be. Story 18, Muslim woman here. 1. I've seen a lot of people say, just write a note in your passport. First of all, it's usually the father carrying that daughter's passport, and she probably never touched it. Approaching authorities in front of your parents can be a very intimidating experience in forced situations like these. You'd much rather be approached by authorities and given space to talk to them without your parents staring daggers at you. If you want to find people who have experienced something similar, ex-Muslims is a great place for it, since I know quite a lot who had to escape abusive Muslim families and arrangements. I remember many women posting their experiences or seeking help, including a real-life friend. Most women will not try to escape or seek authority because that could mean the very real potential of an honor killing, something the authorities might not be able to protect you from. A family that enforces forced marriage is more than likely willing to practice that or punish you. B. Having to cut ties with parents and being forever shamed by them. This can take a real emotional toll on a Muslim woman, where they're told they can't go to heaven without their parents' acceptance. What a lot of people don't understand is that many of these women can get up and leave, especially if they're in the West, but their values, ideologies, and their love for parents can hold them back from seeking freedom. Also, the idea of being on your own and not having family. Anyways, I know a Muslim gay person who escaped to the United States and was actually beaten up by family members who traveled there just to beat him and drag him back. I know a friend who was forced to marry, and even when she did not want it, it was psychological. Her parents would tell her he's the best option she'll ever get, that she'll end up alone, that her university major is useless, and she's better off married. They really do try to bring the girl down so she can't fight, or, even if she does, make her feel entrapped or that she has to do this, or else she would be useless or a shame to the family. I know not only Muslims practice this, but as far as I know, escaping a Muslim family is very hard and mentally draining, especially as a female, that most females will not attempt it. I'm sorry if it seems like I'm attacking Islam. It just came from a very personal place, and I'm not generalizing anyone. Obviously, the majority of Muslims are not like that, but I won't say it's rare for these things to happen. Story 19, Muslim here, and to other fellow Muslims. Let's assume you forgot this, but remember when the imam, the person about to marry you and write papers, asks if you're being forced to marry, tell him yes. He has the authority and his duty as an imam to take you under his wing to protect you until this is settled. Ashamed to say this, but usually, like 99% of cases, the family is poor and forces their kids to marry someone rich. That's why I took an oath on myself to let my daughter do what she wants and be with who she wants. Even at this young age, other parents joke, telling me they want her for their son, and I'm straight declining them. Story 20. I will remember this trick. It almost made me cry. I used to work at a secondary school where girls wouldn't return after summer break. No advice, no explanation. Back to a foreign country, their classmates would say with fear in their eyes. It all seemed so common to them. Every girl or boy, for that matter, who opens up or tells me about this fear, I will give this advice to. I understand the religious part, and breaking ties with family is hard, but everyone deserves to be loved and treated humanely. It's up to them what they'll do, but honestly, if this saves even one person from a life they don't want. Story 21. After my military service in the Israel Defense Forces, I worked for a short while as a supervisor for departures at Ben Gurion Airport. We had just opened up flights for Jordan, and it wasn't unusual for Palestinians to take a short flight to Amman rather than a long bus journey over the crowded bridges to Jordan. This one girl was 12 and set off the alarm really hard. One of the ladies took her aside and asked for me after only a few seconds of talking to her. Long story short, she was arranged to marry someone for a good amount of money and was crying for help as soon as we got her in a private room. Unfortunately for her, She did end up boarding a few flights later after the Jordanian ambassador got involved, and many other high-ranking officials from our State Department. This was in the mid-90s, but I believe even today this would have been the case. They basically claimed she's delusional or something like that. Sud. We all knew, but there was nothing I could have done in the end.